Welcome to Rolling Recklessly, the Warhammer podcast where dice decide legends, paint never dries, and every roll tells a story. I'm Grizzly, and whether you're here for the lore, hobby, or the chaos of the tabletops, you're in the right place. So grab your dice, ready your general, wake your champions, and let's get reckless. So grab your dice, steady your nerves, and grab your war paint, because today's episode of Rolling Recklessly is all about stepping onto the battlefield for real. This one's personal. This isn't a lore deep dive. This isn't a faction focus. This is a milestone episode, because after months of hobby grinding, list testing, practicing games, and late night Spearhead reps, I'm officially preparing for my first full match play Age of Sigmar tournament. The Scorched Earth Open is right around the corner, and for the first time ever, I'm stepping out of the comfort zone of casual nights and into a competitive event environment. And I'm not going alone. Jesse, Zach, and myself all have been putting in the reps, building our armies, and getting everything battle ready for this event. Painting, basting, list refining, mental prep, all of it. This tournament's been on my mind heavy lately, not in a nervous way, but in a motivated way, because it feels like the next step in the journey. It was just 3 years ago I was learning positioning with myself in F, and now I'm walking into a competitive match play environment representing my army, my play group, and honestly, the growth that we've all had as we've grown together in this hobby. So today's episode is going to be a full breakdown of that journey and leading up to the event. We're talking hobby prep, army building, practice games, mental readiness, community training nights, and what actually feels like preparing for your first real tournament experience. Because if you ever thought about competing in Age of Sigmar, this episode is for you. And if you're already on that road, then you already know this prep phase is half the battle. So let's dive in and let's start where every tournament journey really begins. Not on the tabletop, but at the hobby desk. So when it comes to preparing for your first match play tournament, it doesn't start with the list building. It doesn't start with the battle tactics, it starts at the hobby desk. Because before you can compete, you've got to get your army ready for war. Physically, visually, and mentally. And I've been grinding hard at myself in F leading up to this event. One of the biggest milestones for me recently was finishing my second set of Wyldwoods, for the most part at least. I still need to go back and detail some of the groundwork and the bottom textures, but structurally, they're done. And if you play Sylvaneth, you already know, trees aren't optional. They're part of the army's identity. Having both sets built and table ready feels like a weight off my shoulders heading into tournament play. On the hero side of things, I really locked in some major progress that I'm proud of. I fully finished and based my Treelord and Treelord Ancient, both completely painted and tournament ready now. And honestly, when I look at them to compare some of my earlier painted models, you can see the growth. The layering is cleaner, the highlights pop more, the basing is more detailed, and one of those hobby moments where you realize you're leveling up without even noticing it. Drycha Hamadreth was another huge finish for me, and I'll be real, I'm especially proud of how she turned out. She's such a wild model visually, all the spite revenants, the swarm energy, the aggression in her pose. Getting her fully painted and based felt like completing one of those centerpiece threats on my list. And then, of course, we have Alarielle the Everqueen herself, probably the most intimidating model in my army, both on the table and on the hobby desk. I finished painting her, and I'm really happy with the results. But I haven't based her yet. I actually bought her pre-assembled, so my plan is to carefully remove the beetle from the base and redo it entirely. I want to add a creek feature, like some type of water effects, some natural terrain, and something that really sells her presence as the embodiment of life of magic. So she's painted, but her final presentation is still in progress. Outside the core of my army prep, I did take a small hobby detour just as a palate cleanser. I cracked into my Idonith Thiepken. I assembled Volturnos and the Icon of the Storm, just to work on something different for a bit. After going so hard into bark, vines, and forest tones. Sometimes stepping away from your main army for a moment helps you keep the momentum from burning out. I also finally assembled a Null Chemist for my Caradron Overlords that I've had sitting around since Black Friday. I completely forgot I even had him, honestly, but knocking him out felt good. It was like clearing one more little thing off the backlog. Manifestation-wise, I painted up the Ravnak's Gnashing Jaws. Jesse plans on running that manifestation set, and I already had the Lifeswarm and Burning Head built and painted from when I went to Imperial Outpost. Shout out to them, one of my favorite hobby stores ever. Unfortunately, they closed down. So for now, once I base the Jaws, the whole manifestation lineup will be fully complete and tabletop ready. So yeah, the hobby grind leading into this tournament has been real. Finishing centerpiece heroes, building terrain, detailing manifestations, even taking small breaks with other factions just to stay fresh. Because when you walk into your first match play event, you want your army to feel ready. Not just rules ready, war ready. And once the hobby side starts coming together, that's when the mental side of the tournament prep really kicks in. Because painting an army is one thing, competing with it is another entirely. So once the hobby side of things start coming together, the models are painted, the bases are done, and the trees are built. That's when the reality of the tournament really starts to set in. Because painting an army for fun is one thing. Competing with that army in a timed, structure, competitive environment is a completely different experience. And I'll be honest, I have a mix of emotions there when it comes to that. On one side, there's excitement. This is the next step. This is what all the practice games, the list building, and hobby prep has been leading towards. Walking into an event hall, seeing rows of tables, armies from all over, players you've never met before. It's exciting. It feels like stepping into a larger Age of Sigmar world beyond just your local scene. But on the other side, there's nerves too. No fear of losing, that part doesn't bother me. It's more the unknowns. I've been doing a lot of prep mentally outside of just playing games too. Watching battle reports, studying competitive matchups, trying to learn the gotcha mechanic of all the certain factions that everyone's bringing. Because when you're playing casually, sometimes those moments don't show up. But in competitive environments, players know their armies inside and out. So I've been trying to learn things like unexpected redeploy tricks, fight on death mechanics, teleporting shenanigans, hidden spike damages, and long-range shooting. Anything that could catch me off guard that I'm not really ready for. I've also been studying lists similar to mine, watching other Sylvaneth players running comparable builds, seeing what they're successful at, but honestly, even more importantly, seeing where they struggle, where they misposition, where they commit too early, where they lose board control. Because learning from someone else's mistakes is way less painful than learning from your own in round 3 of a tournament. And going into this event, I do have a performance goal in mind. I'm not walking in to expect to win the whole thing, but if I can walk out with a 3-2, I'd feel really good about that. That would mean I held my own, that I competed well, and that I belonged in that environment. Anything beyond that is just a bonus. Now, time, pressure is one hurdle, but there's another piece of it that I've been thinking a lot about too. Endurance. This isn't just one game. It's 5 games across 2 days. 3 games, day 1, 2 games, day 2. And that's a lot of mental load. You're thinking, measuring, strategizing, scoring, adapting, over and over again. Fatigue becomes a real factor. Decision making gets harder. Focus slips if you're not careful. And honestly, that part feels intimidating. Not because I don't think I can handle it, but because I know it's a different kind of challenge than casual play. But at the same time, I love this game. I've worked hard to get to this point, so while it's definitely a hurdle, it's one that I'm excited to push through. Because that's what this really is for me. A milestone. A step forward. A test of everything I've been working on over the last year. From movement discipline to tactic selection to patience, which, if you know me, is something I've had to kind of work on as a player. Sometimes I want to fight too early. Sometimes I want to leap when I should just wait. Tournament play punishes that. So mentally, this event is as much about self-control as it is about strategy. But despite the nerves, despite the unknowns, there is confidence too. Because the prep has been real. The reps have been real. The hobby grind has been real. And I'm not walking in alone. I've got my team with me, Jesse, Zach, and all of us are stepping into this together. So mentally, I'm trying to walk that balance line. Excited, but grounded. Competitive, but learning focused. And confident, but humble. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about winning games, it's about leveling up as a player. And once that mental side is dialed in, that's when you start looking at the most important question heading into any tournament. What army are you bringing, and what is it built to do? So now we get into the part of the tournament prep that might be the most exciting and the most stressful at the same time, the army list. Because this is where all the hobby, all the practice games, all the mental prep really come together. And that's what I'm walking into with the Scorched Earth Open. So now, the list I'm running is titled, Now You Treat Me, Now You Don't. And it's 1970 out of 2,000 points, Sylvaneth, built under the Wargrove of Everdusk, battle formation from the current General's Handbook. One of the biggest reasons I wanted to run this formation is because it leans heavily into the Scorched Earth rules, which Sylvaneth got some really cool support from. And honestly, I wanted to play with that toolkit competitively before this GHB rotates out. The big standout for me is the All Heroes teleport that Wargrove of the Everdusk enables. That kind of mobility opens up so many tactical options: late game objective pressure, hero repositioning, threat projection, tactical battle tactic scoring, and it lets you play reactive instead of just being reactive. You're dictating tempo instead of chasing it. And alongside that, I'm also running Scorched Earth Drycha, or Soggy Drycha. And I've got to say, her updated War Scroll is awesome. She feels way more impactful now, aggressive, disruptive, and dangerous if left unchecked. And Drycha fits perfectly into the theme of this list: big threats, high pressure, and force your opponents to react. I also took the artifact Glamour Weave and I put it on Durthu. This one's gonna be sneaky strong. Being able to reroll a hit, wound, and a save on a non-unique hero adds a layer of consistency to an otherwise swingy hammer piece. Because, let's be honest, Durthu hits hard. But when he whiffs, it hurts. So Glamour Weave gives me just enough reliability to trust him in key engagements. So now, let's talk about the queen herself. Alarielle just isn't on this thing because she's strong. She's in this list because she's my centerpiece model, not just of my army, but of my entire collection. She's the model that made me fall in love with Sylvaneth aesthetically, and running her competitively just feels right. But beyond that emotional attachment, she brings real value. Summoning support, unit recursion, healing presence, board pressure. Her ability to bring back units is something that I'm heavily relying on in this list, especially because my biggest concern going into this tournament is my model count. This list is very elite. It's big trees, big heroes, big threats, but not a lot of bodies, which means holding objectives and scoring battle tactics can get tricky if I'm not careful. If I lose a unit early, I feel that loss more than a horde army would. So my plan to offset that is to sustain. I'm leaning heavily into Alarielle's unit return ability, Sylvaneth healing at the end of each turn, the durability of my Treelords, and then board presence through the terrain. So far in practice games, my big models have held strong. They're hard to shift, and if they don't die outright, Sylvaneth just start healing them right back up. It's because of this war of attrition that favors me over time. And honestly, part of this list is just embracing what I love about Sylvaneth. I want to hit people with giant walking trees, Durthu smashing, Treelords anchoring, Drycha swarming, and Alarielle towering over the battlefield. It's cinematic, thematic, and when it works, it hits hard. Even if sometimes the dice betray me and the damage whiffs. The threat presence alone forces reactions from my opponents. So this list is a mix of competitive intent, model passion, my formation synergy, and calculated risk. It's elite, it's mobile, it's pressure heavy, but it demands precision play to succeed. And that's the kind of army I want to take into my first match play. Now, of course, a list is only as strong as the reps you put into it. And that's something I feel really good about going into this tournament, because we've been training hard as a group. This hasn't been casual, once a week hobby nights. We've been grinding. At minimum, me and Jess have been playing twice a week for the last few weeks. Usually Thursdays and Saturdays, getting full match play reps in whenever we can, testing lists, practicing tactics, running battle plans, learning positioning, all of it. And then on top of that, we've still got our regularly scheduled Warhammer Tuesdays at J&J. So it's been constant. Games, hobbying, list talk, non-stop AOS energy. And it hasn't just been gameplay either. We've all been pushing hobby progress too. Painting units that have been sitting unfinished for a long time. Basing armies to get them tournament ready. Cleaning up centerpiece models. And it's been cool seeing everyone lock in at the same time with the same goal in mind. You can feel the event getting closer just by how much more hobby progress everyone's been posting. One of my favorite nights recently, though, was about 2 weeks ago when Jesse and Zach got their full 2K game in. And I got to sit back and watch it unfold, which was awesome, because I knew those two were going to collide eventually at this event. Stormcast versus Slaves to Darkness, Order versus Chaos, Lightning versus Shadow, and honestly, Zach did great for his first full 2K match play game, especially considering me and Jesse have been grinding our armies for years now. He held his own way better than he gave himself credit for. That game also taught us a lot about how Zach can leverage Be'lakor more effectively, timing his control pieces, using his threat projection better, and understanding when to commit versus when to hold back. Watching that unfold in real time was huge, not just for him, but for all of us learning chaos matchups too. And on Jesse's side, he played the game basically flawlessly. Consistent scoring, averaging around 10 to 15 points per turn, maintaining board presence, and keeping tempo pressure the entire game. It was one of those performances you could just see the reps paying off. Calm decisions, measured aggression, no panic plays. But what was really interesting is how the game ended up teaching us all about something bigger than just list matchups. Because despite Jesse being ahead most of the game, the battle plan itself started to put him through a rough position in the late. It reminded all of us that something really important going into this tournament. You don't just play the opponent, you play the battle plan. Some plans favor certain armies. Some punish ultra elite lists. Some reward board flood. And if you're only thinking about matchups and not mission design, you'll get caught off guard. Even when you're winning, the game really drove that lesson home for all of us. So between practice games, hobby progress, matchup learning, battle plan studying, and just spending time around the table together, I feel like we're walking into this tournament prepared. Not just as individual players, but as a group that's been sharpening each other and leading up to it. And with all that prep behind us, the hobby grind, the mental prep, the list building, and the training nights, all that's left now is stepping onto the tournament floor. And that's going to bring us an end to today's episode of Rolling Recklessly, and this one meant a lot to me, because it wasn't just about lore, or factions, or gameplay theory. This was about the journey leading up to one of the biggest milestones of my Age of Sigmar career so far. My first full match play tournament, from hobby grinding, to mental prep, to list building, to training nights with the crew. It's been a lot of work, but it's been the good kind of work. The kind that reminds you that why you love this hobby so much in the first place. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about competing. It's about growth as a player, as a hobbyist, and as part of a community that's been leveling up together. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been a part of that journey. Jesse, Zach, our Tuesday night crew, everyone who's rolled dice with us, painted alongside with us, or just hung out and talked with us on about Warhammer. That energy matters more than any tournament results ever will. And of course, thank you to everyone listening, whether you've been prepping for your first event, thinking about stepping into match play, or just enjoying the ride alongside me. I appreciate you being here. And if you want to stay connected with the show and everything that we've got going on, you can find us here at Instagram at rolling_recklessly_podcast. You can check me out on YouTube at Rolling Recklessly, and then Discord, the link's in the bio. We've got hobby updates, community nights, and plenty more AOS content rolling all the time. And with that, I'll see you all across the table. So until next time, may your crits be high, your paint never dry, and your rolls ever reckless.